And to sit out facing towards the camera, okay?
Okay.
Oh, wow. Right?
Right.
Then I go over here.
What Sambo Steve told me was that when your opponent's in the turtle position and you take back control, you don't want to put your knee between his legs, which is exactly what you do in wrestling, because they do a rolling knee bar and get you to get a submission. Another interesting point was that when they roll the opponent and they wind up back to chest, in theory you can hold him there for 3 seconds. 3 seconds is a pin and that's a win. So it's a little bit different than say BJJ or MMA.
Marius, lower your base.
Okay. Sit down. Go here.
Now sit. Now turn off over that direction. And roll. Yeah.
And I know where there's a man who knows the history of catch wrestling and he's dying to tell it. And his name is Eddie Goldman.
If you're going to talk about catch wrestling's history, you're going to have to understand that it's part of the thousands and thousands of year history of the sport of wrestling. And all the techniques that are used in catch wrestling go back thousands and thousands of years. And a lot of that has been lost in antiquity.
If I can't get in, because his like on your hands and knees,
okay,
right? I'm always controlling your neck, and then I'll hook your arm, and then I can do lots of stuff from here. Obviously, submissions, turnovers. From here, if I want to go for my Nelson, I can turn you. Pin, right?
Oh yeah. In catch wrestling, you can pin. He's gonna get me like that for 3 seconds.
Yeah, that's it. Just 3 seconds.
It's all right.
Ancient Egypt, and ancient, and many other ancient cultures and civilizations. So when we talk about catch wrestling, wrestling, more recent history goes back to the mid-1800s, as Steve said, to England, to the Lancashire area, where they developed a style of wrestling that had both, in a simple sense, pins and submissions. And some of it was disorganized. Some of it would be activities that people would just do out in the fields.
He has a whizzer, I have a whizzer. Right? Doesn't matter. What's important is that the way I need to get him off my face. I use my shoulder. Boom. Drive that shoulder out and put my head in. Right? So if I work a whizzer and I'm here and he somehow clears me, boom! I do the same thing. I use my shoulder, clear his head, and get my head in. Boom.
The whole idea of governance, modern governance that we have today, international federations, didn't exist. Governance was very weak and unsophisticated and undeveloped at best, and in some cases very corrupt, which is what ended up happening with catch wrestling, particularly by the 1920s. The whole thing went staged and worked and failed.
In wrestling, we'll start. This is called referee's position, right? Oh yeah, I don't know English names for anything, all right? Because I wrestle in China. All right, so look at this. I got my knee right behind his buttocks, between his legs, and I'm going to grab him around the waist, and I'm going to put my hand on here, and that way I feel very safe. I can control him. And I've done this. You used to watch my MMA videos. I fight like this all the time. But when I do this to Sambo Steve, because he's a Sambo guy, he's going to mess me up. Okay, old man. Oh.
There were different people had different emphases in catch wrestling. We were talking about that before, about pins and submissions. The term "no holds barred" that I use for my shows is actually a catch wrestling term, which is one of the reasons that I've kept it. It basically means that not only do you wrestle for takedowns and positioning pins, but you can use any hold to get a submission. Even there, the rule sets vary. Some versions of catch wrestling, for example, barred strangulations and made no distinction between crushing the windpipe and the kind of chokes that are very prominent in Jiu-Jitsu and MMA, rear naked chokes, head and arm, all these different types of chokes that are not what we necessarily call strangulations today. Even in those, you cannot crush the windpipe. So there are all sorts of different rule sets in terms of time limits, whether matches are 2 out of 3 falls. There's no one set of rules today because there's no one governing body. And even where there is a governing body, even if you look at sports of wrestling, you have so many different styles of wrestling, freestyle, Greco, folk style, and there are different rules on the college level, on the high school level in terms of what is allowed, many, many different variations. And even in freestyle and Greco, the rules are constantly changing from year to year. But the basics are very simple. You win by pin or submission.
So one really neat thing you showed us last time, when you did the roll, unroll, right. You actually land with your back on your opponent's chest. Yeah. With switch, for Jiu-Jitsu, I'll do that, don't do that, but for you, you got a pin.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a couple of things you gotta remember, like the one we were doing last time, you had a seatbelt, right? Right. So I'll do my peek out, boom, roll you here. Now here, back to the chest. This is fairly safe. Right. I don't want to put my arm in the middle because you can catch it and start doing other thing. Yeah. But I'll have my arm either here or here. If you're trying to come towards my back. Right, because I can't. Yeah. No way. No way I can choke. Right. And if you do, keep your seatbelt. Then I'll just turn 3, 1, 2, 3, or I'll usually go to like a reverse guard. Okay. Or
whether it's 1 fall, 2 or 3 falls, or in the June 7th Catch Wrestling Alliance event, there's 1 fall, 20-minute time limit. The Snake Pit USA is going to have different rules. It really all varies, and what's going to end up being sort of dominant set of rules, we're going to find out.
Had a tight grip here. I can switch to my scarf hold. Here. Take the grip again. I can turn to side control. So as long as what I don't want to do is roll onto your back and have a leg caught between your legs. Right. But if we're perpendicular, I'm usually pretty safe.
Okay, cool. That's really interesting because you just have it drilled in your head. Don't put your back on the chest, you know. But you're right. You're working it. Yeah, that's awesome.
I just think it's a sport with a great potential to revive a real level of professional wrestling. Probably the most exciting style of wrestling out there. So do it!
Ching! So I want to oh, sorry, I have my mouthpiece thing. Hey, by the way, do you put your mouthpiece in your underwear when you're done wrestling?
Depends on the problem.
Alright, well you know what, I always put mine in my underwear. Give me yours. Alright, I'm Graceffo. We're in New York City. I'm learning about catch wrestling from Sambo Steve. Sambo Steve, thank you so much for having me, man.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure.
Is there any last words you want to say to people at home about training, about, you know, anything, fighting, training?
Just don't limit yourself. Train everything. It makes the best grapplers. Don't be afraid of cross-training. To the gym owners out there, let your students cross-train. There's too many schools out there that don't allow it. They get all dogmatic about it. We encourage our guys to cross-train. It actually keeps them loyal, keeps them coming back if you give them the freedom to experiment. Plus, what they learn, they bring back, and you learn too. And it just makes you a better club. So,
plus, if they go somewhere else and get beat, then they're gonna not believe you anymore.
Well, yeah, it is a reality.
It happens.
Or they go somewhere else and win, and then we get students. Cool. It's a two-way street.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sambo Steve. Man, this meeting is like years in the making. I've known about you for years, so I just never had a chance to do it.
Finally here.
Eddie Goldman made it happen.
Thank you, Eddie.
I'm Graceffo. I'm Eddie Goldman. You're listening to No Holds Barred. Thanks, Steve.